This is a story about the world's most powerful navy losing a war, not against a foreign enemy with ships and missiles, but against the ground beneath its own feet, a war it cannot win. Naval Station Norfolk is the largest naval base on Earth, the headquarters of the U.S. Atlantic Fleet, home to 80,000 personnel, 59 warships, and the immense projection of American power. And it is sinking, not in a metaphorical sense. The actual crust of the Earth here is collapsing into the sea at a rate of 5.6 millimeters per year, the highest on the entire U.S. East Coast. It's a double threat, an impossible equation. The ocean is rising, and the land is falling to meet it. The result is a slow-motion catastrophe that doesn't wait for a hurricane. They call it sunny day flooding. A beautiful, clear afternoon, a simple high tide, and the main roads to the base, like Hampton Boulevard, are underwater. Thousands of sailors and personnel are cut off from their own headquarters. Critical steam lines that power the piers get submerged. Dry docks, where billion-dollar warships are repaired, fill with corrosive saltwater. Not from a storm, from a tide. The problem isn't theoretical. It isn't a climate model projection for 2080. It's happening right now, today. What good is a global navy if its sailors can't get to their ships because the road is flooded on a Tuesday? What would you do if your own city was actively sinking? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And this is a national security crisis hiding in plain sight. We cover the stories that get ignored. An incredible number of people watching right now are not subscribed. If you think this story matters, take 1 second and hit that button. It is the single biggest thing you can do to ensure these warnings get seen. Let's begin. This city is fighting a battle on two fronts, one against the relentless rise of the Atlantic, the other against a ghost of the Ice Age. 20,000 years ago, massive ice sheets, miles thick, pressed down on the northern part of the continent. The immense weight squashed the Earth's mantle, and like pressing a thumb into a water balloon, the land far to the south, here in Virginia, bulged upwards. A geological phenomenon called a forebulge. For thousands of years, this land sat artificially high. Now, the glaciers are gone. The weight is gone. And the bulge is collapsing. A process called glacial isostatic adjustment. The land is slowly, patiently, inexorably sinking back to where it should have been all along. A geological correction that is happening on a timescale humans were never meant to experience. Every millimeter the ground sinks is a millimeter the ocean claims forever. It's an ancient, unstoppable force. But it's only half the problem. The other half is a disaster we made ourselves. Beneath the entire Virginia coastal plain lies the Potomac Aquifer system. Think of it not as an open underground lake, but as a dense sponge of sand and clay, saturated with fresh water held under immense pressure. For over a century, as cities like Norfolk grew, as paper mills and industries expanded, they drilled wells and pumped that water out. Millions upon millions of gallons every single day to drink, to build, to survive. They were draining the sponge. Because the aquifer is confined by thick layers of clay. Removing the water reduced the pressure that helped hold everything up. The heavy clay and sediment above began to compact, to compress. The ground itself started to sink. The very act of providing drinking water to the growing population was pulling their city down toward the sea. Two forces working in perfect, terrible harmony. A planet settling a 20,000-year-old debt. And a century of thirst. By the time scientists could measure it, the numbers were staggering. A landmark multi-university study, finalized in February 2026 and led by Virginia Tech's Dr. Sarah Stamps, used GPS and deep earth extensometers to get the most precise measurements ever. They confirmed the land is sinking at an average rate of 2.3 millimeters per year. That one factor alone is responsible for nearly 50% of the entire sea level crisis in Norfolk. This isn't just climate change. It's geology. It's gravity. It's a city discovering the ground it was built on is not solid at all. It's a terrifying thought that the ground beneath a city is literally compacting. Have you ever seen subsidence or sinkholes where you live? Tell us your story in the comments. And the subsidence is not uniform. That's the part that makes it so much more dangerous. Recent NASA radar mapping, confirmed by Dr. Stamps's 2026 ground-based data, shows the sinking is chaotic. Some trouble spots, like the landfill on Craney Island, are sinking at rates 7 to 10 times faster than areas just a few miles away. Imagine trying to maintain a city's infrastructure, water mains, sewer lines, fiber optic cables, gas pipes, when the very ground they are buried in is tearing itself apart at different speeds. A pipe that was laid straight is now being bent and stressed by millimeters every single year. It's a silent, underground crisis that precedes the flood. A structural failure that builds for decades before it breaks. For the U.S. Navy, this slow-motion disaster is a tactical nightmare. While the Pentagon plans for conflicts thousands of miles away, the nation's primary Atlantic base is being undone by high school physics. The problem has a name: relative sea level rise, or RSLAR. It's the combination of rising water and sinking land. And according to the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, or VIMS, which produces a yearly report card on sea level change, Norfolk's current RSLAR rate is a staggering 5.60 millimeters per year, the worst on the entire American East Coast. Molly Mitchell, an assistant research professor at VIMS who leads the creation of these report cards, puts it bluntly. We are accelerating at a high rate compared to a lot of the rest of the country. She emphasizes that for people on the coast, a global average number is meaningless. People living near the coast want to know what to expect where they are. And in Norfolk, what they can expect is more water. The projections are not ambiguous. VIMS forecasts that by the year 2050, Norfolk will see a relative sea level increase of 4.47 meters. That's about 1.54 feet. 1.5 feet doesn't sound like an apocalypse until you understand the thresholds. In 2014, the U.S. Army Engineer Research and Development Center issued a stark warning. They concluded that a 1.5-foot rise in sea level acts as a critical tipping point for military infrastructure, not a minor inconvenience. A tipping point for catastrophic, cascading failures across a base. Norfolk is not heading toward that tipping point. It is scheduled to arrive there in less than 25 years. The former oceanographer of the Navy, Rear Admiral David W. Titley, the man who started the Navy's first task force on climate change, doesn't mince words. He says Norfolk is in a whole heap ton of trouble. He believes the city is fighting for its very existence. And this is the uncomfortable truth he sees. This is the part of climate change that I don't think most Americans have really come to grips with. That virtually every coastal city is in a fight for its existence. They just don't know it yet. In Norfolk, they know. The evidence is everywhere. At the Norfolk Naval Shipyard in neighboring Portsmouth, a separate facility for ship repair, the problems are identical. In May of 2023, the Navy cut the ribbon on a $191 million renovation of Dry Dock 4. The primary driver of that massive cost was to protect it from constant flooding. The chaos seeps into the most sensitive operations. At that same shipyard, officials had to reinspect 10 years' worth of deep-sea submarine components. Why? Because the analog sensors on heat treatment equipment located in those vulnerable, flood-prone dry docks had given inaccurate readings. The constant dampness, the fluctuating environment, it compromised the very gear meant to ensure nuclear submarine parts were safe. This isn't just about wet feet, it's about mission integrity. The Navy's response has been a mix of brute force engineering and desperate adaptation. The most visible examples are the new piers being built at Naval Station Norfolk. They are spending over $100 million for a single modernized double-decker pier. A colossal expense for what should be simple infrastructure. The reason is survival. The lower deck provides access for ships. The upper deck elevates the critical utilities, power, water, communications, above the reach of the routine high tides that already swamp the older, single-level piers. They are literally building a second story onto their docks just to keep the lights on. It's a staggering admission of defeat. An acknowledgement that the water has already won the ground floor. This kind of incredible, radical engineering deserves to be known. If you find this story as mind-blowing as we do, hit the like button and consider sharing this with a friend or family member who needs to see it. It helps more than you know. Faced with an opponent like geology, The city of Norfolk and the federal government have made an audacious choice. They have decided to fight back, not with small adjustments, but with two of the most ambitious and wildly different engineering projects in American history. One is a fortress. The other is a science fiction cure. The fortress is the Resilient Norfolk Coastal Storm Risk Management Project, a name that masks the sheer, brutal scale of what is being built. In partnership with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the city is embarking on a nearly 9-mile-long system of concrete floodwalls, some reaching 16.5 feet high. They are building massive storm surge barriers, tide gates, and pump stations. The price tag is $2.6 billion. Leading the charge are officials like Norfolk Mayor Kenneth Cooper Alexander, who first won election in 2016 and has made coastal resiliency the centerpiece of his administration. In his 2026 State of the City address, he aggressively prioritized this fight, framing it as essential to the city's economic future. The city's chief resilience officer, Kyle Spencer, is the one overseeing the day-to-day battle, managing a project of almost unimaginable complexity. The plan isn't just a drawing on a board. As of April 28, 2026, the City Council approved contracts to begin the design-build phase for programs to elevate private homes and fill in basements in the most at-risk neighborhoods. As of January 27, 2026, the project received another $25 million grant from the Virginia Community Flood Preparedness Fund. Construction on the first major floodwall segment, Phase 1A, stretching from the Berkeley Bridge, is anticipated to begin in the fall of 2026. This is real. They are walling off one of America's most historic port cities to hold back the Atlantic. But a wall only solves half the problem. It's designed to stop the ocean from rushing in. It does nothing to stop the ground from sinking out from under it. It does nothing to stop the groundwater from bubbling up from below during those sunny day high tides. A wall can keep out a storm surge, but it can't stop the land itself from betraying the city. For that, you need the other solution. The one that sounds like it was pulled from a science fiction novel. It's called the Sustainable Water Initiative for Tomorrow. SWIFT, run by the Hampton Roads Sanitation District, or HRESD, the local wastewater utility. The plan is so radical, it's hard to believe it's real. SWIFT takes millions of gallons of sewage and wastewater every day, puts it through an advanced treatment process that purifies it to standards cleaner than drinking water, and then aggressively injects it deep underground, back into the collapsing Potomac Aquifer. They are trying to reinflate the earth. The goal is to physically increase the pressure in the aquifer, to combat the compaction, and to slow or even reverse the sinking of the land. It is real-life geoengineering happening right now. They started in 2018 at a research center, and the program is scaling up. The initial phase injects 1 million gallons a day. The ultimate goal is to inject 100 million gallons daily. It is an attempt to undo a century of damage by pumping a city's own treated waste back into the ground it stands on. A desperate, brilliant, and terrifying gamble to see if human ingenuity can fix a problem that human existence created. These two projects represent the city's fight for its life. A multi-billion-dollar wall to keep the water out and a revolutionary pumping system to push the land up. But the question that haunts every engineer, every city planner, every naval officer in Norfolk is the same. Will it be enough? The memory of Hurricane Isabel hangs over Norfolk like a ghost. When it made landfall in 2003, it caused historic damage. Piers were destroyed. The base was crippled. It became the new benchmark for what a worst-case scenario looked like. But that was 2003. With sea levels that look quaint by today's standards. Current Navy and Army Corps models, which project a future with higher sea levels, are chilling. They show that if a storm with the same power as Isabel were to hit Norfolk late in this century, between 60% and 80% of Naval Station Norfolk would be inundated. Not just the piers, not just the access roads, the majority of the base itself. Gone, swallowed by the storm surge, piled on top of a permanently higher sea. The city is trying to adapt. On July 1st, 2026, Norfolk's Resilience Office announced it was lobbying Congress to speed up beach renourishment schedules from every 7 years to every 5, because the coastline is eroding faster than anyone predicted. They are fighting for inches of sand while the ocean is claiming feet of elevation. The sheer scale of the military presence in the Hampton Roads region makes the problem almost insurmountable. It's not just Naval Station Norfolk. It's the Norfolk Naval Shipyard. It's Langley Air Force Base. It's Fort Eustis. The entire region is a dense constellation of critical military assets, all sitting on the same sinking coastal plain. The U.S. Navy is grappling with this reality, but the pace is agonizingly slow. Reactivating the Second Fleet to prepare for potential conflict in the Arctic is a grand strategic move, but it's an almost comical irony when that fleet's home port is being tactically defeated by a high tide. The greatest navy in history is preparing for war at the top of the world while simultaneously struggling to keep its sailors from getting their boots wet driving to work on a sunny afternoon in Virginia. I know, this is the second time I'm asking, but our data shows a shocking number of smart people like you watch to the end and just forget to subscribe. If we want to keep digging into these hidden crises, we need your help. A quick click makes a world of difference. Okay, no more nagging, I promise. So, the city walls itself off. The Navy builds taller piers. The sanitation district pumps water back into the ground. A frantic, multi-billion-dollar effort to defy geology. But the numbers keep coming. That 54-foot rise by 2050 is not a worst-case scenario. It is a median projection. And the forces driving it are not slowing down. The thermal expansion of the oceans continues as the planet warms. The slowing of the Atlantic circulation patterns allows more water to pool against the East Coast, and the ground beneath Norfolk continues its slow, silent collapse. Was the engineering marvel of the Swift project a permanent solution, or just a way to slow the bleeding? Is the $2.6 billion megawall a guarantee of survival, or just the most expensive ticket to a front-row seat for the inevitable? The city is caught in an impossible trap. It owes its entire existence to the water. A port city, a naval hub, a community built on the edge of the sea, and now that same water is its executioner. Norfolk is not a cautionary tale. Not yet. It is something more complex, an extraordinary story of a city that looked at an impossible geologic problem and refused to surrender. The walls are real. The pumps are real. The science is real. But Norfolk is also a harbinger, a preview of what awaits virtually every coastal city on Earth. It is simply experiencing the future first. The combination of sinking land and rising seas is not unique to Virginia. It's happening in Miami, in New Orleans, in Jakarta, in Venice. Norfolk is just the place where the crisis is most acute, the stakes are the highest, and the ground is falling fastest. The fight for Norfolk is a fight against physics, a battle against time. The city and the Navy are betting billions of dollars that engineering can outrun geology, that concrete and pumps can defeat a 20,000-year-old geological process and a rising global ocean. The walls are rising. The pumps